Okay, welcome to WITI Africa, where we have conversations that matter with change makers who are making significant contribution to their communities in different African countries. Africa has 54 countries. I know a lot of you think Africa is just one country. Africa has 54 countries, and our goal in WITI Africa is to bridge the divide between the global south and the global north and change the narrative people have about Africa. My name is Winifred Ereyi. I am a member of the John Maxwell team, and so is my co-host, and I'm also the WITI Africa network lead. Joining me today is my co-host, Tosin Arowojulu. We have been best friends for over 40 plus years, but we're still sweet 16. And she's also a member of the John Maxwell team. So over to you, Tosin. Can you introduce yourself?
I almost said good evening, but it's evening here. But then I remembered not everybody's where I am. So hello, everyone. It's great to see you. I'm excited and looking forward to hearing more from our speaker this evening. As Winifred said, I am a John Maxwell certified member. I live in Bahrain, which is why it's 9 p.m. over here. And I am passionate about empowering entrepreneurs and business leaders about their leadership and communication skills so that they can build powerful and collaborative teams without conflict. And so with that, let's hear back to you, Winifred.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tosin Arowojulu. Joining us today is Absa. I'm going to introduce Absa. So give me a minute to introduce Absa. I'm not sure why my thing went off. Just a minute now. So Absa Gningue is a speaker, a multi-award winning entrepreneur, and a passionate technology advocate with an impressive record in global leadership. She began her career at just 20 years old, holding key managerial positions at renowned multinational corporations such as Procter & Gamble, Samsung Electronics, and IBM. In these roles, she led diverse teams and managed sales, marketing, and business development across more than 70 countries spanning Africa, the Middle East, and Turkey. Welcome, Absa, to this conversation. At the age of 30, Absa transitioned into the development world and became a diplomat by joining the African Development Bank as a senior innovation platform officer, where she supports technology-related operations. She also leads the bank's innovation and entrepreneurship lab, overseeing a team of consultants focused on inclusive innovation and resource mobilization in support of the Jobs for Youth in African strategy. A firm believer in the power of youth and community, Absa founded JEADER in 2014, a dynamic do tank centered on volunteering and youth empowerment through entrepreneurship in over 25 countries. Known for her creativity, she launched ABC, Aduna Bull Comprender, in 2011, a brand that champions the creative economy, especially in fashion design, arts, and crafts. The brand gained international recognition and was awarded the Bronze International Design Award in Los Angeles in 2017. In addition to her entrepreneurial initiatives, Absa is a content creator and social media influencer, widely recognized for her productivity planners around serendipity and the spiritual podcast series, mixing personal development and spirituality for women. According to publicly available data from Favicon, she has a strong digital presence across multiple platforms, underscoring her growing influence in the digital economy. Most recently, she co-authored the book Modern Leadership Inspired by Mother Nature, which became an Amazon #1 bestseller in the US within just 3 days of its release, ranking first in the new releases in business management science category. Congratulations, Absa. In France, it secured bestseller status in 3 categories: educational leadership theory, educational leadership theory, management science, and systems and planning. In February 2025, Absa was reappointed by presidential decree to Senegal's Conseil National du Numérique, where she plays a key advisory role on the country's New Deal technology strategy. This marks her second nomination to the council, this time under the newly elected president of Senegal. ABSA's life motto is to inspire a new generation as she demonstrates a profound commitment to innovation, education, and social transformation across the African continent. Absa, oh my goodness, that is so commendable. And a fun fact about Absa is that she speaks fluent French and fluent English. So some things in her bio were in French. So I just had to, I can I.
It was so
Yes,
good to hear
Absa.
you pronounce the French, Winnie. It was
My son's name is Jean Raphael, and
oh,
I always felt that he was going to be a man of languages from the time I carried him, and that he was going to learn to speak different types of languages: French, Spanish, and other languages. Now he is told, now that he's 25, he's told me, say, "Mommy, that is your dream. That is not my dream." But his name is still Jean Raphael. He had to go to France to learn how to pronounce his name. But anyway, but
amazing.
I love the French language. I learned French all the way until I was 18, but it's been very difficult to practice, and that makes my speaking not as fluent. So my reading is so much better. But it's so good to have you here. You are a woman of so many talents, and I have to tell David how I got to meet you. So I went to Tanzania, and when I went to Tanzania, I met a woman. I went to Tanzania on behalf of WITI in order for us to establish WITI Africa. And then I met this woman, and this woman told me about um, JEADER. And she told me about you, Absa, you being the founder of JEADER. And so I reached out to a contact that I have in from Senegal. Both of us know the contact, and the person also knew you. So you are a woman that is so well known in different spaces and places. So it's such a honor that you've given us your time today. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to go right ahead and ask you some questions. Leadership is your forte. It's also an area of passion for myself and Chelsea, because we are leadership development consultants. So leadership is evolving from command and control to collaboration and co-creation. How do you define modern leadership? And have you personally adapted your leadership style over the years? Absa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Winnie. And before starting and before responding to that question, give me the opportunity to thank you and thank Tosin, and David for this opportunity and the rest of the team. I was listening to you. I'm like, I'm sure she mixed 3 or 4 buyers all together. That was a long one. But it means simply that for me, modern leadership means being driven by passion. Most of the things you've mentioned are really done with passion. In a world where we are reminded that maybe we can't do it all, my motto or my vision is in trying new things, in giving ourselves the capability to deliver beyond our comfort zone. It's not easy, and there is always an inner voice reminding you that you might need to slow down, you might need to wait until next month or the month after. And procrastination is something very real. But being in this world or this modern leadership implies as well the fact of understanding that leadership is really not about authority. And to your question, when you ask what I have personally learned and how I adapt my leadership style, I think I learn to be less authoritarian, with less authority and more of an authenticity type of leadership. Because I belong to a specific tribe in Senegal. We call them fishermen, Lebu. And it's a matriarchal society. Women are very powerful. And my mom,
Really?
yeah, my mom, my support system literally is very, very, very powerful. And the idea behind the fact of having that assertive type of leadership is also to understand that you might be hiding other type of personalities, or you might take too much of a space when it comes to maybe project management or when you're leading. Your name is always, at the front. So what I've learned is really to lead by being backstage, by observing, by giving myself the opportunity to learn, but also to empower others. We can't talk about leadership without having people who can learn and who can really, be leveled up. So what I learned is simple. I learned to stop to prove myself, and I've learned to try to improve systems and support people in a way that I help in cultivating, in nurturing, and in creating the right environment for people to flourish. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for that. That is so much in line with what WITI is all about.
Yep.
WITI means workforce innovation, trust, and influence. We changed our name, and when you're looking at influence, leadership is all about influence. So when you
True.
talk about empowering people here in WITI, one of the things that one of our focus is really empowering people through knowledge sharing and
Mm-hmm.
providing opportunities like what we're doing today for networking, for collaboration. So I really like that concept of leading from behind and leading with authenticity. I call that, Brené Brown calls it leading with empathy. So I really
Yes.
like that shift. And that is a shift that I've had to make in my life. And I'm sure Tosin has had to make that same shift. I'm going to ask this next question and then hand it over to Tosin. Your leadership journey began at just 20 years old. You
Mm.
navigated global roles at companies like Procter and Gamble, Samsung, IBM.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, what mindsets or habits were pivotal in helping you thrive in such high stakes environments so early in
Mm.
your career?
Mm-hmm. Wow. I think one of the key lessons was to share best practices, to share what you've learned, to share how you're doing things. And innovation, you mentioned innovation. I'm absolutely passionate about innovation. Innovation is all about the context where you evolve. And if you're able to create a scheme of what you're learning. Should that be in the corporate space or the entrepreneurial space or in grassroots space? That scheme will help you in, you know, having a modus operandi, right? And there are principles, as you rightly mentioned, that are universal. I think what I learned from Procter and Gamble was promises made, promises kept. I'll never ever forget that. When I entered in that office and I saw that, I think it did set the ground for what I'm calling now my values. The fact of keeping your words, the fact of delivering impact and making impact, helping people to see the before and the after. Um, I think it's really important. Empathy. Empathy is also very important, as you rightly mentioned it, because that's what helps you in understanding that someone giving you a feedback is not necessarily against you, right? Somebody having a bad day can come in an offensive way. And when you practice empathy, you can then deliberately decide not to join that negative cycle and listen. I've also learned that experimentation is everything, execution. Having an idea is good, but when it comes to innovation, it's really important that you get to test ideas to know if it's okay or not okay. Why am I using okay or not okay? And I'm very careful when I use the word success because I don't believe in failure. I believe that failure is another phase of success. You're succeeding in learning a lesson. So it's not failure. And that mindset brought together and applied in different spheres can really have a ripple effect. Um, and then you can go and motivate more people to join that effort of co-creation. Because I was speaking in an event and telling them that there is something more powerful than artificial intelligence. Do you know what that is, Winfred?
No, no.
That's collective intelligence.
Oh, collective intelligence. Yes.
Because we evolve in different industries. And before we know it, you can apply something specific to the agribusiness industry into, I don't know, transportation. Just because when you evolve in a specific industry, you have these schemes that I was talking about, the design thinking methodology, but you learn from others. I can learn from you, Winfred, because you've been to Tanzania. You've been to places I've never been. So when you tell me the story of you thriving in this environment, I'm also learning. I'm learning something new that I get to know because I'm sharing with you. So that collective intelligence is also bringing something that artificial intelligence can bring, and that empathy and the fact of learning that when you lead, I mean, you lead human beings with their souls, with their heart, with their mind, and that is very important.
Yeah, thank you so much for what you've just shared. I think that is one of the things that we embody here in WITI. With all the knowledge sharing, all the events we do, is really opening up the door so that people even in our audience can engage in the conversations when you talk of collective intelligence. And that is one of our superpowers, to have the small networks where we bring in speakers who can share their knowledge and invite people in the audience to contribute. And with that knowledge sharing, we actually now begin to compete, in your opinion, with artificial intelligence. I'm not sure that we can compete because we have some AI gurus here like David and Tosi, who are artificial intelligence gurus, who can tell you something that maybe we can't really compete with the AI. But there is so much power in us coming together, sharing knowledge, opening doors for other people and giving them access to opportunities. So thank you for sharing that. That is one of the mindsets and habits that you've had to adopt to navigate these spaces. Over to you, Tosin.
Thank you very much, Winifred. And Enchanté, Absa. Very
Oh,
nice to
excellent.
meet you. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. First of all, I have to say I love your outfit, what you're wearing. And Winifred mentioned about your fashion. So I'm curious to hear a bit more about that as well.
Mm,
And what you just shared about collective intelligence, that really hits the nail on the head. And
mm,
just to buttress on what Winifred said, that's what WIT is all about. And that's why we're here. So my question for you, because Winifred talked earlier about your starting JEADER, and
mhm,
so I want to hear a bit more about that. So
mm,
my question for you is JEADER and ABC are both brilliant expressions of your commitment to creativity
mm,
and youth empowerment. So what has been your most profound leadership lessons from grassroots engagement across 25 African countries? And if you could
mm,
maybe elaborate a bit more about the 25 countries and also
mm,
what does JEDA mean and ABC as
mhm.
acronym?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dawson. I'm impressed by the French. So I'll start maybe by the last question. So ABC stands for Aduna pour comprendre. And congratulations, Winnie, for trying that one out. It was not easy because it had Wolof, the local language, and French. And if I were to translate it, actually, it means life goes on.
Mm,
Um, because ABC is also a continuum.
mhm,
Almost all the letters we know would start by ABC, should that be Arabic or French or whatsoever, as a reminder that it's never too late to start something. If you feel like your passion is in designing outfits, I designed this one, so I'm very proud. Thank you for the compliment. So it's very important that we get to the basic and know that life goes on. We have to start over and give ourselves the choice of finding a path and not feeling guilty at all, doing it right or being excellent at it. And as women, and I'll talk to that maybe when we talk about the book more in detail, we shouldn't be shy or we shouldn't feel bad shining out there. Because as we grow up in our African culture, you're reminded not to speak too loud, to be very calm, not to be running after, the chickens and all that when you're in the village. Where boys can do that, they're allowed to do that. But as women, you have a certain way of doing things. And as we grow up, that is also kind of establishing a kind of a shyness towards our capabilities. We are afraid of telling the world what we can do. And it shouldn't be that way. So ABC is my creative spirit. That's where I design clothes, and it started in Nigeria, Winnie, because I was working in Nigeria and it was taking too much time to get home. I was working for Procter and Gamble. I was working in the market, so I could see different sets of fabrics. I could, understand where the fabrics are coming from, how the colors are matching. And when I would be in the car, I'll start drawing because it's too long. And while drawing, I just realized that, well, I could actually make it happen. I could really turn this drawing into something concrete, as I was talking about concretizing our ideas earlier. So today we have a team, and I was super proud of welcoming interns. They came here a week ago and they were shooting and learning and taking notes. And I heard an hour before this call that they got the best mark at their exam while using ABC as a use case. So it shows that from an idea that is super simple or random, we can make impact and have a ripple effect. Because ABC is also a testimony for my late father. He used to be a policeman, the director of national police here in Senegal. And I saw him giving a chance to prisoners. So it was also my way of telling the world that you can give chances to people who might not believe there is a chance out there. Empathy. Now for JEADER, it stands for Jeune Entrepreneur Africain, œuvrant pour le développement économique régional. So in English, it's young entrepreneurs working towards regional integration. Literally, we teach kids how to become leaders thanks to entrepreneurship. Because I've developed that, I wouldn't say it's not a mindset because it's way too big, but we believe that if you have the right support, you can literally change your life and the way you see things so that you can face opportunities where people see challenges. You'll just be like, where are the opportunities? When there is a specific situation, what can I do? How can I contribute? To which extent can I make a change? I'm not just suggesting it, I am doing it. I am part of the change. So that's what we're trying to do. And in the 25 African countries you mentioned, we have, I would say, supporters or partners, and they are the ones translating our own values in their own country.
Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I really like what you shared, and it resonates with what Einstein said, that in every difficulty, in every challenge, there is an opportunity. So it depends on what you are looking at. And my best friend for life, Tosin here, has been doing a lot of Facebook lives and talking about growth mindset. And really, that's what that you are actually taking that theory of growth mindset and applying it at the grassroots level and training your entrepreneurs to have that mindset. And it was one of your young entrepreneurs I met in Tanzania who works in the transportation industry who told me about you. And I just really like that training, that mindset change, really teaching people to seize opportunities when they find them, rather than looking at problems, to look at solutions. So there is this problem. What is the solution? So that is a good segue to my next question. That you've navigated the corporate world, you have launched successful ventures, you have worked on grassroots initiatives. I know you've shared some things that you have learned, but we want to dive a bit deeper into what lessons you have learned about leading innovation across these different spaces. In particular, what do you see in common with those spaces? Because some people will say the corporate world is so different from the entrepreneurial space, is so different from the development space. But there is some commonality, and you have successfully navigated those spaces. So can you bring it home for us here to tell us, what are the similarities? What lessons have you learned? And first of all, start with what are the similarities with those spaces? And then tell us what lessons you learned.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Before aiming to do a job, I think that the key lesson is to learn to be agile. We live in a world where if you stick to that position where you're like, I'm a marketer, I'm a communicator, I'm a financial guy, and you stick to that, you are deliberately deciding to close few doors and shut down few opportunities. While I think the main lesson is to open to be bold, but to open up to new opportunities and new ways of seeing things. And that's how innovation starts. We cannot talk about true leadership without talking about agility. Because we live in a world, a devil cat world, as they say, it's really versatile. You know, you never know what can happen tomorrow. It changes at a speed you can't even get it. So if you stick to a title, you are in trouble. The second point is to listen. We never listen. We have a response ready somewhere to show that we know what we're talking about better than anyone else in the room. Listening, and that comes from the interaction I've been having with kids. You know, they learn, and they learn to listen. And when they listen, they grab it. And when they grab it, they grow up with habits. As we grow up, I was talking about our mentality and how we shift from a gender basis. As we're kids, we tend to forget, we grow up as adults thinking that we know it all, and we forget that sensitive quality that we call listening. And on the ground, you get to realize that actually in our countries, we don't need supermans and saviors and people coming to save us, you know. I think what we need is space and tools to showcase what we can do without any judgment, without any bias. And I think to your question, what is the common areas, the common ground between all this? I would say it's innovation. It's impact. When you aim to do things or to change mindsets in a way that you achieve results, that goes everywhere. Either you're into corporate, you know, we can call it, you know, when I was in corporate, it was called, you know, deliverables. You have to deliver on your numbers, the sales target. Commercially, you need to have your return on investment. Your team has delivered a specific target every month. Then when you come into the, you know, as an NGO, you have to make impact. You have to touch people's lives. You have to turn it into something tangible where they'll be like, oh, there is a before and after. And then when you come to public sector as a public servant, you're serving citizens and government. It's a different set of client, but you're serving the same goal. And if we, as African people, are given the opportunity to showcase our talent, we can, in a vibrant way, shine in all these different platforms, but yet we need to listen to what the market has to say, to what the citizens have to say, to what the people we're trying to serve have to say. I would say that's the simple way of translating it into its innovation and impact.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, that is so profound. And human beings, I mean, I'm still on a journey myself about how learning to listen. Tosi is an expert listener. Tosi has that as a natural gift. She listens, and she has to listen because I'm my best friend for life and I talk a lot. So, David, so I trained her from an early age to listen. We've known each other since we were 12 years old. So I trained her to listen. But she's an expert listener. She listens and she asks a lot of thought-provoking questions. That's why she's an excellent coach. But learning to listen is so important in the world of leadership, in the world of, you know, just being an innovative human being. Because if you listen, you catch things that people have said, Freudian slips, and you can make those connections and connect those ideas to create products. And that's one of the power of really this sort of events we do in WITI. Because if you go to the different sessions that we have and you just sit down and listen, it can trigger thought-provoking. People can ask thought-provoking questions and it can trigger ideas in you that can turn into products. And from there we are talking of that's how innovation starts. So I really like what you have said about learning to listen. I am on that journey. So and I take one step forward and two steps backwards. Actually, my children, when I ask them, what is one thing you want mommy to learn? Guess what they said? They are 25 and 24. Learn to
No.
listen, mommy. So I'm still on that journey. So Tosi, over to you.
We're all on the same journey, Winifred. All
True.
need to listen more. So thanks for the compliments, though. Okay, Absa. Now we had Winifred had mentioned in your bio about the book that you had written, and so was curious to learn a bit more about your modern leadership inspired by Mother Nature, your book.
Yep.
So or can you let us know how can we draw from this wisdom to navigate complexity and cultivate resilience in a digital first world?
Well, thank you for the question, Dustin. I think the funny fact with the book is that it was co-written with a former colleague. We met when I was at Samsung. Her name is Funky Michael. She's from Nigeria, and she was sitting in South Africa by then, and I was sitting in Senegal. She was my second line manager, by the way. She always laughs about it when I tell the story. And we literally had to work without seeing each other. So it's to tell you how digital world is really good at connecting people when they live far away from each other. And it took us 2.5 years, almost 3 years to put it all together and to produce the book. And while we were producing it, we just simply learned from Mother Nature. And Mother Nature is teaching us resilience, as you rightly mentioned. It's teaching us adaptation. It's teaching us how to resist, how to bend, how not to break. And in a fast-moving digital world, I think it's important that we get the right values and that we get that agility, that flexibility I was talking about in our strategies. When we talk about wisdom, and I'm going to tell a story, it's a very funny story about one of our readers. She said, there is something very funny with your book. I went through the book and then I thought I was done. I learned quite a lot of things. I went to download the workbook because we have a website where you can download only the exercises and get to, evaluate yourself. The workbook is for free. And she said, the funny story is that I have 3 daughters and they are quite young. And after I finished the book, because they were seeing me all together, they were seeing me with the book all the time, they started reading the book. And because we have these drawings, of animals inside the book, they started asking to their mother to explain what the book is about. So she's literally telling us that I moved from a reader to someone telling someone else what the book is about. And the 3 daughters loved it so much that they started, drawing every day, bringing colors, starting, the younger one would start, this a turtle, I want to color it, this kind of things. And at the end of the day, you realize that everything lies on simplicity. If we write things in a simple way, we explain things in a simple way, if we put it all together with the aim of simplifying things, we are now building a new narrative and a new way of thinking. And think about it. We overcomplicate concepts and we overcomplicate the way we see things. If we simplify it, and that's what innovation is about at the end of the day, you want to invent or you want to reinvent things that are already existing by making it simpler and by enhancing the productivity, by making sure that you're having impact, since we were talking about impact. And I guess that's the reason why we got the Amazon bestseller, and it's also a bestseller on Ingram Park. That one is very recent. Within I think the category was women in business. We were number 3. And at the end of the day, it helps in understanding that we need to go back to the basics and make sure that we are making things simpler. So here's the book. It's called Modern Leadership, Inspired by Mother Nature. And yes.
Thank you so much for that. Now, one of the power of our WITI network is that we create an inclusive environment so that we're not the only one asking you questions. I will invite Kendra, who wants to ask you a question, to ask you her question right now before we continue with our questions. Kendra, over to you. What question do you have to ask?
Oh my gosh, I'm so like full of from listening to all of you. It's been great, seriously. And I think it's so interesting about leadership. Well, one thing I have thought about, I've gone back and forth with John Maxwell for years. And the fact that you guys are connected, I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyway, when I think of leadership though, I feel like we're in a crisis with leadership. Right? Because we have, we see men most, right? The world looks towards men as this basis or this kind of billboard of sorts for leadership. And I'm like, how do we as women, do we kind of take back, or not, yeah, take back, because really, it was the goddesses that were leading the charge, but I won't get into that. But like, how do we as women being in technology when it can be like mostly male dominated, and just because that's part for me, like I have sat around men for years, right? I've sat around men in the industry, and just, being a Black woman, they have been white men, so it's like all of this balance here that I when I that is has been challenging. And so for leadership, and I love the book. I hope I can get it from Amazon. I think I heard you say that I can purchase it from Amazon. So I will be doing that today. But how can I, being here in the United States, how could I be supportive of, right? Like, how could I support you?
Join WITI. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Join WITI. No, the beauty of what you said, Kendra, is exactly in the response I was giving, stating that Funke was now she's sitting in the UK, and I'm sitting somewhere between Senegal and South Africa. I'm based in South Africa, Pretoria, but I'm currently in Senegal, West Africa. And you've said 3 interesting things in your question, and that's amazing. The first one is, how do we support women when it comes to technology? Supporting women starts by sorority, making sure that tomorrow when I meet with some folks, I start talking about Kendra and Tossin and Winifred and the amazing things you're doing. And I think we should be more into that sorority type of mindset where we support each other, as opposed to being mean against one another.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh.
Tosin said, I love your outfit. You know, she was spontaneous
Mm,
in,
yeah.
doing good, right? So we should do the same. And that's how I guess with the mindset of JEADER, that lady in Tanzania talked about what JEADER is doing and how it has changed her life. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how smart you are, how good you look at, how good your hair is, how good your outfits are. It's what you've left in somebody's hurt that drives that energy of getting out there and making the same for someone else
Yeah.
and turning it into a domino effect where we support each other, where we get each other. I've got your back. Moving forward, the next step, I'm gonna look for Kendra's name. I'm gonna support her on LinkedIn because I've got her back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the second thing you've said in your question that is extremely important is how to lead as women. Should you be black, white? I I must confess, I've been very lucky having Ginny Rometty at the head of IBM when I was joining. She's a she's a super powerful woman. And at IBM, I've learned that being a woman wasn't a problem at all. And
Mm.
yet we are evolving in an IT world, and IBM by then was something else. David probably know that Watson was the very, very first attempt of artificial intelligence. We made it too heavy, so we didn't survive. But at the end of the day, we started using artificial intelligence in different industries, into healthcare. We even use Watson Chef to cook and then start creating recipes to tell you how basic artificial intelligence can be. But going back to your question, we shouldn't be shy. We
Oh,
shouldn't, we shouldn't at all. Somebody told me, you have to be discreet. And when you talk too much, people get to think you want to be seen. I say, oh, you know what? I say, yes. I say, I'm so gonna shine.
yes, yes. Absolutely.
Because it's not about yourself. It's about who you can inspire, who can just identify you as a way of saying, I'm not gonna let it go. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna try. I won't let it go. And then the third thing you say that is extremely important. We talked about women evolving into we talked about women leading and working together. The third P is generational support.
Absolutely.
We need to identify people of another generation lifting our generation up. But we need to find our younger sisters. They need to be supported to get up,
But
to
that's
even go
leadership,
beyond
right?
our own level.
Yeah. I mean, but that's leadership, right? That to me, that's true leadership. That is identifying someone or a group of people, generation that can carry this legacy on, right?
Get them up, up, up.
Yep.
If each and every one of us is supporting 10 girls, I can guarantee you in 5 years' time, these girls would support other girls. These other girls would support other girls. And before you know it, it's a whole generation, a
Yep.
whole generation.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And one of the things that I was able to do in WITI was to actually nominate the woman. Her name is Mrs. Ulumaduka, who
Mhm.
had inspired me to become an engineer. She had come into my
Wow,
school and did an outreach, a STEM outreach. She
wow,
must have been in her early 40s or late
wow.
30s because now she's like 82. And I nominated her to be part of WITI's Hall of Fame. And
Mm.
what she had done by reaching out to my school. I was in my fourth year, and Tosi and I went to the same school. And what she has done with what she did, I have paid it forward. I do a lot of outreach in schools in Nigeria for now. And in these schools, I set up STEM clubs. So you are right. There's so much multi-generational wisdom that we need to capture. One thing that Absa said is she gave us this terminology which I've put in my backpack. And maybe next time I say it, I won't tell them that Absa was the one that gave it to me. It will now become my own. But I really love the power of that word, collective intelligence. There are things you can read in a book, that will make you feel knowledgeable. And I tell my children who tell me they are very brilliant, I say that wisdom and knowledge are two different things. You can get knowledge in a book. AI can give you knowledge. But how are you going to apply that knowledge? That's where that collective intelligence comes in. That's where wisdom comes in. And that is the power of
Exactly.
multi-generational communities. And I'm so
Exactly.
grateful that is one of the things that WITI promotes. But because we are coming close to the end of this conversation, I have to ask you one last question and then wrap
Sure.
it up.
Sure.
Innovation often involves uncertainty, risk, and stepping into the unknown. I know you've talked a lot about this,
Yep.
about stereotypes and say women,
Yep.
girls ought to do certain things. But I want to
Yep.
unpack it further. I want to ask you personally, Absa, you're living in Senegal, you came to Senegal to have your baby, you live in
Yes.
South Africa, you work for ADB, you've navigated so many different spaces, and you show up as this very bold and courageous young Black woman. What gives you that courage to lead boldly and push ideas forward? I know you talked about passion, but that's why I want to unpack it a bit further. What else, in addition to passion, that gives you that what should I say, that oomph to just show up boldly with your beautiful attires, and wearing your faith so boldly? You wear your faith so boldly. I always see you with your hair nicely covered. So you carry your spirituality, your fashion, your finesse, and you show up boldly. What makes that all work for you? What is the fire behind that? Tell us as we bring this to an end.
That's God. That's the short
God.
answer. That's God. And it's in your question, actually. I think we should be all driven by purpose. Um, that's something I really value in my career at Procter & Gamble. Purpose. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, as Simon Sinek would say. Why are you doing it? Why are you so close to Thorsten? Why are you guys friends years after? Purpose. When your why is strong enough, huh, you won't see any challenge. The how will be easy to find, by the way. And you're right. I lean on my faith. I lean on mentors. I listen a lot, and I've had the chance to live with my late father was an old man. The difference in terms of age was, I believe, 44 years. And I was very close to him, and I learned to listen and to know the why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, just to wrap up, and maybe that's a message to the younger folks listening to us out there. I'll share the broadcast and the replay. Too often the why is, I want to shine. I want to be seen. I'm on social medias. I want more followers. I want more likes. I want to be seen. And that's not the most important part of it all. I think it's important that we understand that we're part of the whole universe and we are so small. that should remind us how humility is important. We are so small out there, and we talk about it in the book. We are so small that we should not only be humble, but we should make sure that our own path, the little we are bringing on the table, is valuable. So that the fact of us being small won't matter as long as we are contributing big to that universe. And it's also important that we don't forget that failure is not a problem. I love failing. What they call failure, I love it. I love being in discomfort because that's how I get to create boldness. Since you ask, I've been able to reinvent myself in very tough situations. And that's how I believe that it's God, because it's God who is throwing these challenges at you so that you outperform and get out of your comfort zone and He is with you as you grow. You just need to learn the process, to learn in trusting the process, and you need to identify your support system. People ready to listen to you when you need help, or people ready to give you a hand when you want to, level up. That's why we created JEADER as a platform for these young folks to grow, but to also develop a mindset of positivity. Let's stop crying, drama, it won't work, I'm going to fail, and let's shift the mindset and get to another level for a better continent.
Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the time, Absa, that you have given us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time that you...
Merci.
Winnie? Okay. Thank you so much. Merci, Aja.
Tosin, please, can you close for me? You can see the aircrafts have started to do their display. I mean, the parking lot is 2 o'clock. So wrap it up for me, Tosin, so I can go.
Well, all right, Winifred. Thank you again. Absa, before I let you go, could you pronounce your name so that I
it's
can...
Ndeye Absa Gningue. Winifred was so excited about the Blue Angels, I didn't want to ruin the introduction. It's Ndeye Absa Gningue, or Absa, to make it very simple.
Yeah.
Ndeye Absa Gningue.
Ndeye Absa Gningue. Okay.
Exact.
Okay, great. Well, it was awesome having you. From the feedback we've received from the people who are also listening in, it's been great. You've been very insightful, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and share your insights, your valuable knowledge and wisdom. And definitely we'll be in touch to have a follow-up with you in the very, very near future. And we wish you continued success. If there's any way we can collaborate, support your work, please don't hesitate to let us know how we can do that together.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Cumulative, that's a new word.
Intelligent.
Collective intelligence. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Absa. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great